Hello, everybody, and welcome to our pep talk today. I'm so excited to be going live with you guys with Barbara Hemphill. She'll be here in just a couple of minutes. So just wanted to go ahead and get you guys settled in. If you are joining us from LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, please post a comment wherever you're joining us from so we know where you are, where you guys are all joining in from, and any questions you have. Today, we're going to be talking about feel good productivity by Ali Abdaal. So have you guys heard of this? And when you see that title, like what do you think of? Like what's the first thing you think of when you see that title? Feel good productivity. So I'm going to actually bring Barbara on stage now. So just go ahead. Hello, I see you guys commenting. So good. Awesome. Glad you're here. Hey, Barbara.
Hello, good morning. Or good
Morning.
afternoon, wherever people are.
Yeah, that's right. I always forget. It's so funny when I walk my dogs. I always say good morning, and then I catch myself and I'm like, wait, it's afternoon. Like, wait, because when you deal with people online, everybody's at different time zones, so I never know what time it is. So anyway, we've got Carrie joining us. I know she's joining us from Carolina Beach. Awesome. Hey, Carrie, and good Karen. Good Karen. I love how she has to give that disclaimer. She's one of the good ones. And she is joining us from California. Hey, Karen. So anybody else that's joining in, go ahead and let us know where you are from, and know that you are, you can post comments. I think my mom is here. Hey, Mom. Welcome. All right, guys. So let's get right in. Let's get right to it. So I saw this book, Feel Good Productivity. And one of the things that I do often at the end of the year, maybe some of you guys do it too. Barbara, I don't know if you do it or not, but I like to binge watch productivity things. And I think a lot of people do. And so, especially a lot of people that love productivity and always want to know what the next best thing is, and what. And so I thought, am I missing something? Because we do a lot of teaching with Barbara's Principles, the Productive Environment Institute. We teach physical decluttering and organization, as well as digital decluttering and organization. And I thought, what? Is there something new out there? Is there something that maybe we've missed? And so it's so interesting, Barbara. What I found is that a lot of the people that are quote gurus, productivity gurus right now are guys, men in their 30s, which is so interesting. So I thought, okay, let's see if they have a different perspective than us. And so I'm happy to say that I think we still have, we're on the cutting edge. And I think a lot of other people, I don't know, I don't know how that sounds if I say a lot of other people are catching up. I guess what I want to say is that we still are using principles that have worked for decades and continue to work. And yes, there are new tips and tricks out there. And I'm the first one that loves to see something new. But I am so happy to see that our principles are foundational. And a lot of these guys and a lot of other productivity experts they do stand by some of the principles, Barbara, that you have been teaching for decades. So I'm gonna turn this over to Barbara in a second, because I just want to let you guys know that we haven't discussed this. Barbara, you and I have discussed the fact that we're going to do this talk today. We talked about the book briefly. Like, I have no idea how Barbara feels about the name of this book or the concepts in this book yet. So I'm just as excited as you guys are to hear what she has to say. So Barbara, feel good productivity. What say you?
Well, I just did the opposite of you in terms of you're looking at the beginning of the year, binging on productivity. I have done exactly the opposite, which is I have tried to shut down absolutely everything that I didn't feel was just really, really important. I have deleted so many things, donated so many things, given away so many things. It's just, in fact, I went to one program that I've used for decades, literally decades, and I went through all the contacts in it. There were like 1,700. I went through and pulled out, I went through a whole list and pulled out the ones I was interested in, added them into my CRM, and deleted that whole database, which was huge.
Wow. That is huge.
So I'm glad you brought up the fact about the productivity is being discussed by young males.
Mhm.
And actually, Ali addressed that in the video that I listened to, in which he said, and I, I can't remember if we've talked about it here or not, but somebody once a while back said to me that if I had been a man, what I started doing 40 years ago would be a lot farther along. And I never thought of it that way, but now I'm believing that it is true. And this actually confirmed that, because what he said, I think, is absolutely right on, is that most men my age thought that this whole thing about productivity and all that was kind of woo-woo stuff. I mean, it's just like, just get down to it, just get the job done. Don't. And I think this is part of the outgrowth of that younger generation having seen what we've done to ourselves, where we're having nervous breakdowns, we're not enjoying our life. We have all this clutter that we've accumulated, and they're far more interested in experiences. And what he said was, I thought was interesting, is that he basically talked about making the task you are trying to do, whatever that is, whether it's do a podcast or to make it an experience. And you make an experience by making it more joyful, which goes back completely to what we've been talking about for decades, which is accomplish your work and enjoy your life.
Yes.
Now, the other thing I thought was very interesting was that in the interviews I've listened to several interviews that he's done. Not once did I hear the word clutter mentioned.
I noticed that too. And his stuff and some of the others that I've been listening to. I think, Barbara, I think their audience are people who love productivity. They're like us, and that they love the newest and the greatest and the thing. But because there's several others besides Ali that it's the same thing. It's like, here's how to plan. Here's a great planner. Here are the apps to use, and here. But there weren't any discussions that I found about clutter, and I thought I had the same feeling you did, or just I noticed it.
Well, and I think that makes sense because most of our clients are over 45 or 50.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's because we spent decades accumulating all this stuff, and our children have seen this and don't want any part of it. So now I think the interesting thing is, I think that the younger generation has lots of spiritual clutter because the church community that I grew up in has not been responsive to the younger generation at all. They've tried things, but they haven't reached them at all. And as a result, and if you look at the statistics of suicidal tendencies and mental health issues and stuff like that, and the number one reason for people feeling depressed and being suicidal is lack of purpose. And lack of purpose comes when you don't know why God created you. And so I suspect, and I don't have scientific proof for this, and I haven't worked with enough of the younger generation to be able to substantiate it. But I feel very strongly that it is highly likely that the clutter they have is the clutter of lack of purpose, of not being focused on. It's enjoying, it's having experiences, but for what aim? Where is it going? It's like making sure that everything they do is an experience that is enjoyable. But then the real question is, what do I want to be remembered for? Where am I going in life? What is it that I'm being productive about? I didn't hear any conversation in there about, we often say when someone says to us, we want help getting organized, we always say why.
Yeah.
Because getting organized for not a reason isn't going to do anything. Well, I would say the same about productivity.
Yeah.
What are we being productive for, to what end? Now, they did talk about it in terms of a task, accomplishing, doing a podcast or writing an article or, finishing a project or something like that. They talked about it in terms of the individual. But I think the thing, and I guess this comes out of age, it's like, it's as I watch my colleagues die. I mean, one friend just died again my brother died, another friend died last week. I mean, people all around me are dying, and that brings up the question of, what does my life mean? What do I want to be remembered for, and what do I want to accomplish? And so I'm getting ready to do my first New Year's video. And, I've had so many, I was like, oh, I can do this, I can do that. And I do, just absolutely love doing them. And I think I'm going back to the question. It may change. And when I get in front of the camera, it sometimes does. But I think the question I want to ask, which I think every person should ask at the beginning of the year, is what has to happen in the next year for you to feel happy with your progress? And whatever that answer is, especially if it's something you've tried before and failed, then it's like, that is clutter. If that's something, if losing weight, which is always one of getting more exercise and losing weight, it's always in the top two New Year's resolutions. If that's been on your New Year resolution for decade after decade after decade, or year after year after year, then the question is, okay, why? Why is losing weight important, and what am I going to do about it? If it's something you haven't thought of before, because it may be something that you want to have an adventure. You want to try something new, something that you thought you were too old to try, or something you didn't think you were smart enough to try, or you really didn't know how, or you thought it might be too expensive, or something like that. So, as one of my mentors said one time, if fear were no object, what would you do this year? And I think that for me is the important New Year's. And I hate the name resolution too, just because most people don't do it, but maybe your New Year's purpose. I don't know, your purpose, because that's what accomplish your work and enjoy your life is about. It's like, what is your work?
Yeah.
And, for a long time, I had a goal that I wanted to live to be 100. And I patterned that after the comedian George Burns, because he had said that he had booked an engagement at the Palladium for his 100th birthday. So he said, I can't die because I'm booked. And so I did that for years. Well, when COVID happened, I changed that. And I said, you know what? I really don't care how many years I live. I just want to make sure that every day is the best that it can be. And I mentioned, people passing. One of the things, I talked to my sister-in-law yesterday, and we were talking about how important it is in every conversation you have with someone to make sure that whatever you end that conversation on is something you'll be happy with if you don't have another conversation.
Amen. Yeah. One of the things he does say in the book, that what productivity is, to him, well, in general, not just to him, but productivity is doing what matters to you
Mhm.
in a way that's intentional, effective, and sustainable. So that does bring it back to what matters to you. And I don't know, Barbara, if you saw it, but he did an interview. I can't remember who interviewed who, but I love the interview. It was with Ali and Ryder Carroll, the creator of the bullet journal.
Oh, I did not see that one.
Oh, it's great. The bullet journal is the practice. The bullet journal is another planner system, I thought, that I quote tried, like many of you guys watching, maybe you've tried different planners and years ago. And I didn't really understand. I was like, oh, that's pretty neat. And I tried it, and then I moved on to something else. So I kind of dove into that a little bit too. He's another man in his 30s. So, but he really dives into the intentionality of it. And he actually describes the bullet journal practice as a mindfulness practice disguised as a productivity tool. And I didn't get that the first time I looked at it. I thought, oh, here's another. You can go on YouTube and YouTube bullet journal, and there'll be a zillion influencers and YouTube creators telling you how they've decorated theirs and made it pretty. And he talks about in that interview how he felt that at first he was shocked that it took off the way it did because he created it for himself, much like you, Barbara. You created your systems for organizing paper and information because you had ADD, and he does as well. And so he was going through school and then his first job and was trying to figure out how to get everything done and be productive. And then he realized, like we all do, that you really can't get everything done. But he created the bullet journal out of that, and it took off like wildfire. And then he saw people doing different things with it. And he said at first he was very upset. He said, he said, I felt like they were creating a form of procrastination because it had to be perfect. And they they added the artwork to it and they did all these things. And it's so easy for us to do that. But then he backed up and said, okay, they're making it their own. And if that's what they need to do or want to do that, that's fine. But anyway, I'm not here to promote the bullet journal. Maybe we'll do a podcast on that, but it's more so about the practice of the mindfulness, like exactly what you just said, Barbara. What for? Like, if we get all our tasks done, if we have the perfect planner and the perfect day and the perfect schedule and everything's perfect and all our papers are filed and all our emails are in inbox zero, what is that helping us to achieve?
Well, but let me back up. I think just what you said is an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know.
Oh, right. Yeah, I agree.
But somehow people feel like that they should be able to do that. And
Right.
if they do that, if everything is all, then they will be able to enjoy their life. And what I loved about what Ali said was it's about making what you're doing more enjoyable. And he talked about that there were three keys to doing that, and he used the three P's: play, power, and people. And he talked about, and play, he talked about a lot. And play is something that has been a block for me because I grew up on a farm where play was not an option. I mean, we didn't talk about play. My father milked cows twice a day for 18 years and did not miss once. It didn't make any difference how sick he was or whatever. I mean, those cows had to be milked, and and they were. And so play wasn't something that I knew. And then I was born with crippled legs. And so when the kids were playing, no one wanted me on their team. And so I didn't play. So play was completely unfamiliar to me. And so that's been really an issue to figure out, how can I be more playful? What can I do that will make this more playful? And I thought that was really important. I love his book. I mean, I think everything about it, the thing that we talk about a lot that I think ties in here is it's not what should I do, but what will I do? Which we've said, and he was saying the same thing. What can I do if I have this task that I'm supposed to do? What can I do to make it more playful, more powerful, whatever? There was one thing they said in one of the interviews, I don't remember whose was, that he felt like, or maybe it was who was interviewing him, I don't remember, said something about when you're doing things for the fun of it, it's easier to be productive, and to enjoy it. But then when you turn it into that's how you make your living, it goes away. And I had to say that made me feel sad, because that hasn't been my experience. I mean, I make a living doing what I'm doing, and I don't think I feel I couldn't enjoy what I'm doing anymore, even though that's how I make a living at it. So I wasn't sure what his point was on that.
I caught that too. It's so funny. We picked up on the same, because I was like, huh? because I love what I do as well. But then I thought about it. I said, okay, I have known people. I was in worked in restaurants growing up, in high school, college, and everything, who loved cooking, and then decided to open a restaurant,
Mhm.
and they were miserable. So I thought about it with me. I said, well, that's not true because I love productivity. But I also love dogs. And so I thought, okay, maybe that's the case with, like, if I love dogs, I have a passion for dogs, I'm going to go become a groomer. And I would hate that. That wouldn't work. So I kind of think maybe that's where he was going with it. I'm not sure. I'm
Well,
not
that
sure.
is certainly true. There
Yeah.
are, and that has to do with, so for example, through the 40 plus years I've been in this business, people come and say, "Oh, I'd love to be an organizing consultant. I love to help people get organized."
Yeah.
And one of the things I always say is loving organizing and loving being an organizing consultant are two separate, absolutely two
I
separate,
think that's what he was saying.
which I think is,
Yeah.
really, really possible too, because there's
Yeah.
a whole lot more to it than just getting organized. I mean, first of all, you have to love people, because if you don't love people, and especially when people would come to me and say, "Oh, I'm naturally organized. I love to help other people." Well, that's a red flag, because a lot of people who are naturally organized then are very frustrated with the people who are not naturally organized, because they don't understand how they could make that mess. It's part of the reason that I've been successful through these years, because I don't look at what people have done and say, "Oh, how could you do?" I know exactly how, because if I didn't have my own systems,
Exactly.
that is exactly what, what
Very good point.
what I
I wanna mention that, he does go into the scientific part of this too. This isn't just his idea.
oh,
I do
absolutely.
wanna say too, you probably heard the same interview, Barbara, where they call him his claim to fame is that he's the most followed productivity expert on the planet right now, and at the time of the most recent video I saw, he had over 6 million followers. So that's a lot. But so I want to just say he didn't just come up with this idea about, oh, just feel good and be positive and be happy and you'll get everything done and it'll be great. There's research to back it up. And he talks about a psychologist named Barbara Fredrickson, who's actually from Chapel Hill, UNC Chapel Hill. Uh, and she wrote a book called Positivity. And he said it's the positive psychology about human flourishing, which I thought this was interesting. Barbara, what do you think about this? In the past, with I guess in therapy and anything to help people go from diseased and depressed up to baseline, like that was the goal. That was anybody that was having problems and having any kind of issues. The goal was to get them from below zero up to zero, I guess. And then about 20 years ago, with Barbara Fredrickson's research, it changed to how do you get someone from baseline, they're already here, to flourishing, to even better. And she's the one that kind of discovered and dove into the, if you feel good and feel better, then you're going to be more productive and more creative. Which, Barbara, I think plays perfectly into the concept of a productive environment
Oh,
because, right?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's no question. And one other thing, notice he mentioned the fact that the woman who did a lot of this, nobody really knows anything about her. And
Mhm.
notice again,
Yep.
it's a woman who did that. And it
Yeah.
was like 2 decades ago. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's taken a long time
Good point.
to
But
get this to move forward.
yeah.
But I
So
think a productive environment,
yeah.
we say a productive environment is an intentional setting. And he used the word intentional in his definition of productivity. He said it's about being intentional. And a lot of people, part of the things we find, and let me just say that our clients are the people who are proactive and happy, and they're not going to the baseline, they're way past the baseline, and they're really wanting to flourish, especially as they enter the last half of their lives, because it's like, maybe they've raised a family, or they've had a career or employment, they're retiring, or maybe they're caretake parents, and the parents are gone, and it's like there's a new chance here now. And so that's where
Yeah.
our clients tend to be. But I love what he's saying. I mean, I think it's support everything. There was nothing he said that didn't feel like it fits in with what we were talking about. And of course, that's always
Yeah.
very exciting to see the younger generation carrying on with
I
what.
know. I love that. I mean, and I'd like to hear from you guys that are watching too. Are there things they talked a little bit in one of the interviews about just kind of, you know, they didn't so much talk about the environment like we do, but what do they do to kind of get into their zone? You know, some of them they put on their headphones and then that's the sign to, okay, I'm going into deep work zone now. Or they do something like, I have to have something warm. I mean, it doesn't even have to be coffee. It could be tea. Usually it's coffee. But I love to, it's almost like and I do have my water here too. So I am drinking my water, but I have to have something warm. That's part of getting in my productive environment. I have dogs at my feet. You guys probably saw them walking around. That's part of my productive environment. And I feel like those are the things that make me feel good. That's feel good productivity. That I don't feel good and productive and creative when things are a disaster. Sometimes they do. Barbara, to your point, you've said, life happens, messes happen and sometimes you still have to work through that and do your tasks and stuff, but as far as feeling good about it, there are things that I do to make me get me in my zone. One is to have I don't you like background music, Barbara? I don't, but I like background sounds. So I have waves or rain or fire crackling or things like that. So what are some things that you guys do to kind of get you in your zone when it's time to do some of those tasks or deep work? Really, Barbara, do you have any rituals or anything that you do for yourself?
Um, well, certainly music is one of them, and it needs to be, it's a particular kind of music. There are no words, it's instrumental, and it tends to be uh, instrumental that's fairly level, not really loud and then really soft and really loud. So, like if I just go on to um, music and say music for concentration, it'll pull
Mhm.
up that kind of music. So that really makes a difference. One interesting thing, if people have listened to me long, they know how important my quiet time is in the morning. And one of the things I've started to do new lately, which has made a huge difference, is before I start praying or before I start reading the Bible, I turn on praise music and I get it on to where I can also see the words. And then I literally sing along with it. And not for long. Sometimes maybe it's 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes at the most. It's made a huge difference in how much I enjoy my quiet time. So that's a perfect example of
Yeah.
creating a productive environment. And I know, Andrea, we're coming to a close, and I think it would be really important to bring back in here. We've talked about the 5 steps process that we always use. State your vision, identify your obstacles, commit your resources, design and execute your plan, and sustain your success. That your is the common one in there. And everything we've talked about fits in one of those things. It's
Mhm.
something about something that we need to
Yeah.
make it work or we need to not have it work, but that gives us that framework. So for this
Yeah.
call, I invite people to ask the question, what's the one thing that that has to happen in 2024 for me to feel happy with my progress, and then use that 5 steps to come up with a plan.
Yep, and we'll share those 5 steps in the description. I know she went through that really fast, but we'll share that with you guys, and you can also watch this on the replay. Carrie says, "If I need to write, I make a cup of tea. I'm usually a coffee drinker." Oh, so tea is the writing. Okay, and light a candle. It triggers my brain that it's time to write. Love that, Carrie. And Marge, aka Mommy, says, "Massage music does the trick for
Yeah.
me." Yeah,
Yeah,
whatever.
that works for me as
Yeah.
well. So
Venice says, "I love white noise. It's my go-to whenever I am in my workspace." So find something that kind of helps you get in that zone and share it with us. So even if you're watching this replay later on, share it in the comments wherever you're watching from, and show us. Let's see. Karen says, "I stay focused with a timer. Love my pomodoros." That's right. That's awesome.
one of the other things for me is the pen that I use. So
Yes,
having the right pen makes a
our
huge,
prosperity pen. This
yeah.
is our prosperity pen because it writes in green. So one last thing, let me just go to my banners real quick and share. where you can go to. If you're not part of our network yet, we invite you to join our Productive Environment Network. It's kind of like Facebook, only without all the algorithms and all the other stuff. It's literally just productivity. It's just us and just people that are interested in productivity. Productiveenvironmentnetwork.com. And there's one last thing, and we'll wrap with this. If you do not have your recent productive environment score, if you're brand new and you don't know what that is, go to productiveenvironmentscore.com. It's the beginning of the year, perfect time to find out how productive your environment is. And yeah, that's a great time. And then
It's on my list to do today. I always do it on January 1st. I didn't do it on the 1st, but I'm doing it today. So I do it every year so that I can compare last year with this year.
So you're doing your own scorecard, Barbara.
Always, every year.
I love it. I love it. All right, guys, that wraps up our episode of Pep Talk, Productive Environment Podcast. One day we'll have a really cool intro and outro, but this is it for now. So everybody have a great first week of the year, and we'll see you soon.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.